Hey, I'm back. I'm going to try to finish this chapter called Summertime, and it's chapter 10. Um, I ran out of space, so I had to figure out something totally different. So I'm going to come back to where we were. First, I'm going to start with a picture. This picture is it shows what uh, Laura Ingalls Wilder is describing in the text. Um, it's a picture of Ma. Laura's helping her. So that's a hoop. That's a wooden hoop. Pa, or maybe they bought it in a store, but that's on a board, and you can see the two grooves underneath it. Two long grooves, the length of the board. And Ma is putting in those curds. That's what Laura has. She has a pot with the curds in it. So they've been salted, and they're going to put it in that hoop. And there's a clean cloth inside it. And can you see that circular shape that's a little bit closer to the log cabin? They're going to put that on, and on top of after they put the curds in, they're going to put that, they're going to put that thing and push it down on top. They'll put a big old heavy rock on it, and it's going to push out the liquid. The liquid's going to go down those grooves, and it's going to end up in that bucket underneath. The liquid is the whey. And I also like this picture because you can see the corner of the log cabin, how the logs fit together. They would cut out notches and fit the logs there. But anyway, so I'm going to go back to describing. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I was reading before I had to stop. So actually, I'm going to go back a little bit, and they're talking about how the kids helped. So then they went out to the yard. Under the cherry tree outside the back door, Pa had put up the board to press the cheese on. He had cut two grooves the length of the board and laid the board on blocks, one end a little higher than the other. Oh, I forgot to show you that part. So you can see one end is a little higher. So let gravity, when it gets squished out of it, the gravity will just take it on down the little trough there, the two troughs. Under the lower end stood an empty pail, an empty bucket. Ma put her wooden cheese hoop on the board, spread a clean, wet cloth all over the inside of it, so kind of draped it into it. Like if you had a clothes basket or something and you put a bed sheet on it, you know how it would drape down in there? That's what they're doing with the cloth. And that's going to support the bottom of what's going to be a cheese wheel, a big circle of cheese that's the same shape as that hoop that Ma has there. She's going to make several of them. This is the first one she's making. So she spread the clean, wet cloth all over the inside of it, and filling it heaping full of the chunks of salted curd, and filled it heaping full of the chunks of salted curd. She covered this with another clean, wet cloth and laid on top of it a round board. I showed you that board, cut small enough to go inside the cheese hoop. Then she lifted a heavy rock on top of the board. All day long, the round board settled slowly under the weight of the rock, and whey pressed out and ran down the grooves of the board into the pail. Next morning, Ma would take out the round, pale yellow cheese as large as a milk pan. Then she made more curd and filled the cheese hoop again. Every morning she took the new cheese out of the press and trimmed it smooth. She sewed a cloth tightly around it and rubbed the cloth all over with fresh butter. Then she put the cheese on a shelf in the pantry. Every day she wiped every cheese carefully with a wet cloth, then rubbed it all over with fresh butter once more, and laid it down on its other side. After a great many days, the cheese was ripe. and there was a hard rind all over it, a hard like outer kind of outer covering. If you go to like I don't know if they still have them, Cracker Barrel or something. Sometimes in the malls they have them, but they have cheese in it, like cheddar cheese or something. And the outside you could get it in a hoop shape, and sometimes it's covered with red wax, and then inside of that it's got like this. It's called cheesecloth. It's a real. It's a cotton cloth. It's kind of got little gaps between it, and I guess it's to let the liquid flow through it. But it'll be in a circle, a tall circle, kind of like a round cake, but it's cheese. And the outside edge, kind of like if you bake a cake, really. When you bake a round cylinder of cake, the outer part is a little bit harder, a little bit more golden brown. So the cheese has that little, it's called a rind, rind, rind. Um, so she's making a big mess. The easiest is the cottage cheese, the Cajun way. But yeah. So she had it in the on the shelf. Um, then Ma wrapped each cheese in paper and laid it away on the high shelf. There was nothing more to do with it but eat it. Laura and Mary liked cheese making. They liked to eat the curd that squeaked in their teeth, and they liked to eat the edges Ma pared off the big, round, yellow cheeses to make them smooth before she sewed them up in cloth. Ma laughed at them for eating green cheese. The moon is made of green cheese, some people say, she told them. The new cheese did not. The new cheese did look like the round moon when it came up behind the trees, but it was not green, it was yellow, like the moon. It's green, Ma said, because it isn't ripened yet. When it's cured and ripened, it won't be a green cheese. That's like green wood. Green wood, you cut it, when you first cut it from fresh from a tree, it's called green, and it's not good to use in a fire. You know, the moisture comes out of the end of it and everything. It kind of sizzles. It doesn't burn really well. So people used it, when Grandpa was doing the maple syrup, he got that log across there between the two trees. Probably killed the trees, honestly, because that heat really near the roots wouldn't have been good for him. But the log that he had across the top, that'd have been hard to put that on there. But he had that log across the top, and that it was green. It would have been a green tree trunk. So because it would have broken really easily if it was kind of an older tree trunk. Could have caught on fire too. So is the moon really made of green cheese? Laura asked. And Ma laughed. I think people say that because it looks like a green cheese, she said, but appearances are deceiving. Then, while she wiped all the green cheeses and rubbed them with butter, she told them about the dead cold moon that is like a little world on which nothing grows. The first day Ma made cheese, Laura tasted the way. She tasted it without saying anything to Ma. And when Ma turned around and saw her face, Ma laughed. I guess it doesn't taste good. That night, while she was washing the supper dishes and Mary and Laura were wiping them, Ma told Pa that Laura had tasted the whey and didn't like it. You wouldn't starve to death on Ma's whey like old Grimes did on his wife's, Pa said. That's a compliment. They're really in love, this couple, and they're sweet to each other. Laura begged him to tell her about old Grimes, so though Pa was tired, he took his fiddle out of its box and played and sang for Laura. Laura, I think I know the tune to this because of something later in the book, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to sing it this time. I'm not going to sing it. Old Grimes is dead, that good old man. We ne'er shall see him more. He used to wear an old gray coat all buttoned down before. Old Grimes's wife made skim milk cheese. Old Grimes he drank the whey. There came an east wind from the west and blew old Grimes away. So skim milk cheese, she's using milk the fatty milk. So it's going to make a better cheese. So here's a picture of old Grimes. He's very tiny, so tiny he got blown away because he only got to drink the whey from skim milk cheese. So here's going to be the little sweet compliment. I just love this. I love this book. There you have it, said Pa. She was a mean, tight-fisted woman. If she hadn't skimmed all that milk, a little cream would have run off in the way, and old Grimes might have staggered along. But she skimmed off every bit of cream, and poor old Grimes got so thin the wind blew him away, plumb starved to death. Then Pa looked at Ma and said, "Nobody'd starve to death when you were around, Caroline." "Well, no," Ma said. "No, Charles, not if you were there to provide for us." Do you see what they did there? He said, "You take good care of us. You always make sure we have enough to eat and you keep us healthy." And she said back to him, "You make sure we all have everything we need. You take care of us." That's a way they said they loved each other and they appreciated each other. I think it's a really lovely thing. Pa was pleased. It was all so pleasant. The doors and windows wide open to the summer evening, the dishes making little cheerful sounds together as Ma washed them and Mary and Laura wiped, and Pa putting away the fiddle and smiling and whistling softly to himself. After a while he said, "I'm going over to Henry's tomorrow morning, Caroline, to borrow his grubbing hoe." I love this quote. That's his brother. "Those sprouts are getting waist high around the stumps in the wheat field. A man just has to keep everlasting at it, or the woods will take back the place." I try to remember to say that sometimes. It's really true. Early next morning, he started to walk to Uncle Henry's, but before he came hurrying back, hitched the horses to the wagon, threw in his axe, the 2 wash tubs, the wash boiler, all the pails and wooden buckets there were. "I don't know if I'll need 'em all, Caroline," he said, "but I'd hate to want 'em and not have 'em." "Oh, what is it? What is it?" Laura asked, jumping up and down with excitement. "Pa's found a bee tree," Ma said. "Maybe he'll bring us some honey." It was noon before Pa came driving home. He kind of reminds me of my dad in this part of it. Uh, he, I'm not going to tell you. It was noon before Pa came driving home. Laura had been watching for him, and she ran out to the wagon as soon as it stopped by the barnyard, but she could not see into it. Pa called, "Caroline, if you'll come take this pail of honey, I'll go unhitch." Ma came out to the wagon, disappointed. She said, "Well, Charles, even a pail of honey is something." That's a nice thing to say if you're disappointed. Isn't that nice? Even a pail is nice. Then she looked into the wagon, threw up her hands. Pa laughed. All the pails and buckets were heaping full of dripping golden honeycomb. Both tubs were piled full, and so was the wash boiler. Pa and Ma went back and forth carrying the 2 loaded tubs and the wash boiler and all the buckets and pails into the house. Ma heaped a plate high with the golden pieces and covered all the rest neatly with cloths. For dinner, they had as much of the delicious honey as they could eat, and Pa told them how he found the bee tree. "I didn't take my gun," he said, "because I wasn't hunting. And now it's summer, there wasn't much danger of meeting trouble. Panthers and bears are so fat this time of year, they're lazy and good-natured. Well, I took a shortcut through the woods, and I nearly ran into a big bear. I came around a clump of underbrush, and there he was, not as far from me as across this room. He looked around at me, and I guess he saw I didn't have a gun. Anyway, he didn't pay any more attention to me. He was standing at the foot of a big tree, and bees were buzzing all around him. They couldn't sting through his thick fur, and he kept brushing them away from his head with one paw. I stood there watching him, and he put the other paw into a hole in the tree and drew it out, all dripping with honey. He licked the honey off his paw and reached in for more. But by that time, you can maybe hear a lawnmower in the background. But by that time, I had found me a club. I wanted that honey for myself. So here's a picture of here's a picture of the bee reaching in, licking its paw and sticking its other hand in there. Those bees are not happy. People used to get hollow trees to make them into beehives, and they'll put a little roof over the top. So I made a great racket, banging a club against a tree and yelling. The bear was so fat and so full of honey that he just dropped on all fours and waddled off among the trees. I chased him some distance and got him going fast, away from the bee tree. And then I came back for the wagon. Laura asked him how he got the honey away from the bees. That's what I would wonder too. That was easy, Pa said. I left the horses back in the woods where they wouldn't get stung, and then I chopped the tree down and split it open. Did the bees sting you? No, said Pa. Bees never sting me. My dad used to keep bees, and every time I went out in the yard, I would get stung. I've been stung on top of the head. I've been stung on the eyelid. I've been stung. And I would always say, a bee stung me to Dad. And he would say, it wasn't my bees. I always tell my bees not to sting you. He was messing with me. So didn't the bees sting you? No, said Pa. Bees never sting me. The whole tree was hollow and filled from top to bottom with honey. The bees must have been storing honey there for years. Some of it was old and dark, but I guess I got enough of the good, clean honey to last us a long time. Laura was sorry for the poor bees. She said, they worked so hard, and now they won't have any honey. But Pa said there was lots of honey left for the bees, and there was another large hollow tree nearby into which they could move. He said it was time they had a clean new home. They would take the old honey he had left in the old tree, make it into fresh new honey, and store it in their new house. They would save every drop of the spilled honey and put it away, and they would have plenty of honey again long before winter came. He's right. They would do that. So this is the end of that chapter. The next chapter is called Harvest. It will be chapter 11. Ooh, and there's a good story in that one. And then A Wonderful Machine. And then a teeny little chapter called The Deer in the Wood. And that's the end of it. So just 3 more chapters. I love you all. I'll post another video or set of videos tomorrow.